Tim Connelly and the Minnesota Timberwolves made a bold move, bringing LaMelo Ball over to join Anthony Edwards. We're going to look at it from all angles, the good, the bad, the ugly. What does it mean for that team? What does it mean for Charlotte? And, of course, we're also going to talk about Isaiah Joe.
12 hours, gang. 12 hours is all it took for the Charlotte Hornets to go from "we're listening to offers" to LaMelo Ball is now a Minnesota Timberwolf. Let that sink in for a second, because this is not how NBA trades are supposed to work. This is supposed to take weeks. Back and forth calls, leverage plays, agents posturing in the media. Instead, gang, we got a notification, and by the time half of Twitter even processed it, the deal was already official. So let's rewind, because the timeline on this one is genuinely insane. Wednesday night, late, and we're talking the kind of late where most fans are already asleep. Reports start trickling in from Shams Charania of ESPN that the Hornets are entertaining serious offers for LaMelo Ball. Not open to discussions, not would listen if the right deal came along. Serious offers on their franchise cornerstone, the same guy who just helped Charlotte have its best season in a decade. Mark Stein and John Krasinski both confirmed within hours that Minnesota's interest specifically was, in Stein's words, undeniably serious. By Thursday morning, not Thursday night, Thursday morning, the deal was done. LaMelo Ball and Josh Green to the Timberwolves. Naz Reid, a 2033 unprotected first-round pick, 3 first-round pick swaps in 2028, 2029, and 2030, and 3 second-round picks in 2029, 2032, and 2033 headed back to Charlotte. Now here's where I need you to understand the bigger picture, because this didn't just appear out of nowhere. If you were watching the Timberwolves closely over the past week, the signs were already there. Just days earlier, Minnesota moved Julius Randle to the Brooklyn Nets. At the time, fans were asking why. Why trade a guy who is producing for you? Why create that kind of cap flexibility unless something bigger was coming down the pipeline? Well, now we know the answer. The Randle trade wasn't the move. It was the setup for the move. Minnesota also locked up Ayo Dosunmu on a 5-year extension worth over $100 million right around the same time, which in hindsight reads like a front office quietly clearing the runway for exactly this kind of swing. And let's talk about why Minnesota even wanted this in the first place. Because the Western Conference right now is an absolute war zone. Oklahoma City is loaded with young talent. Denver still has Nikola Jokic anchoring everything. Houston keeps adding pieces. Dallas remains dangerous every single year, regardless of what people say about them. Minnesota looked at that landscape, looked at Anthony Edwards entering his prime as one of the best players on the planet, and decided that standing still simply was not an option anymore. This is what people in the league are calling a true win-now move. Tim Connelly, Minnesota's president of basketball operations, has made it clear over and over that he'll always call on star talent the moment it becomes available. And according to insiders, the Wolves had actually hoped to keep Naz Reid out of any deal entirely. Mark Stein and Jake Fisher both reported that Minnesota's front office didn't want to include him, but if they wanted Ball, and they clearly did, Reid being in the deal became non-negotiable for Charlotte. Now let's talk about the actual fit here, because gang, this is the part that's about to break the internet in slow motion over the next year. Anthony Edwards and LaMelo Ball aren't just two random all-stars getting thrown together. These two came into the league in the exact same draft class back in 2020. Edwards went first overall, Ball went third. For years, fans debated who'd end up being the bigger star out of that class. One became an explosive, above-the-rim scoring machine who's already being talked about as a top 5 player in basketball. The other became one of the most electric, highlight real playmakers the league has seen since Steph Curry came up. Now they're sharing a backcourt at Target Center. Picture Edwards sprinting in transition. Picture Ball throwing a no-look cross-court pass from 35 feet out. Picture Edwards finishing above the rim off one of those passes while the Target Center crowd loses its mind. This is not hyperbole, gang. The clips from this pairing are going to be unavoidable on every basketball page you follow. Let's get into the actual return now, because Charlotte didn't just take whatever Minnesota offered, they took everything Minnesota had left to give. A 2033 unprotected first-round pick, 3 first-round pick swaps, and 3 second-round picks is, by any honest measurement, a massive draft haul. An unprotected pick 7 years out sounds abstract right now, but that's exactly the point. Nobody knows what Minnesota's roster looks like in 2033. Edwards could still be there building a dynasty. He could be gone entirely. The team could be contending. The team could be rebuilding from scratch. Unprotected means none of that matters to Charlotte. They get whatever that pick turns out to be, no conditions attached. And can we talk about Naz Reid for a second? Because a lot of the conversation online is sliding right past him to focus on the picks, and that's a mistake. Reid has spent years becoming one of the most beloved role players in the entire league. Every single season, Timberwolves fans were online demanding the same thing: start Naz Reid. Give Naz Reid more minutes. Naz Reid deserves a bigger role. He's 26 years old. He's coming off arguably the best season of his career, averaging 13.6 points and 6.2 rebounds a night as one of the premier sixth men in basketball. And he's a legitimately versatile big man who can score inside, stretch the floor, and bring real energy every single possession. For Charlotte, this isn't just asset hoarding for the sake of it. This is an immediate, productive NBA player walking into their front court right now. So naturally, the reactions online have been completely split, and honestly, both sides have a real point. One camp is saying Minnesota fleeced Charlotte outright, that you simply do not give up a 24-year-old all-star playmaker for picks and a role player no matter how good that role player is. The other camp is pointing at the health question, and gang, that question is the elephant in the entire room. Nobody questions LaMelo's talent. Nobody questions his vision or his creativity with the ball in his hands. The concern has always been availability. Ball has only crossed 55 games played in a season twice across 6 years in the league. Ankle injuries, setbacks, missed stretches right when it looked like he was about to take the leap everyone expected from him. For a front office trying to build something sustainable, eventually you have to ask the hardest question in professional sports. Can you actually build around a player if you don't know how often he's going to be available to play? Minnesota looked at that exact same risk and decided it was worth taking anyway. Because if LaMelo stays healthy, and he was healthy for the bulk of this past season, posting over 20 points and 7 assists a game across 72 appearances, this pairing gets genuinely scary for the rest of the West. Defenses already can't contain Anthony Edwards one-on-one. Now try defending Edwards in transition while LaMelo is reading the floor and picking apart your rotations from half-court range. There's also a piece of this trade that's flying under the radar that people need to be talking about more. Josh Green coming over as part of the deal. Everyone's locked in on LaMelo, understandably, but Green is a real player. This is a guy who earned legitimate respect during Dallas's run to the NBA Finals. He defends at a high level. He runs the floor in transition, and he doesn't need touches to be effective. Championship-level rosters need players who do the dirty work without complaint, and Minnesota just added one quietly in the middle of all this noise. Now flip over to Charlotte's side of this, because the Hornets clearly made a calculated organizational decision here, not a panic move. They still have Brandon Miller and Con Nuepel as young building blocks, and they just added a third legitimate piece in Naz Reid. Jeff Peterson, their president of basketball operations, has made almost every right call since taking the job a few years back, and this is obviously the riskiest swing of his tenure, choosing to move on from the most talented player on the roster rather than build the whole offense around him. It's worth noting that 92.3% of Nuepel's made threes as a rookie were assisted, the vast majority of those likely coming directly off Ball's playmaking, which tells you exactly how much offensive gravity LaMelo created for everyone around him. That's the bet Charlotte is making here, that the system and the young talent matter more long-term than the engine that was driving it. So now it's on you, gang. Did the Timberwolves just build the most electrifying young backcourt in basketball by pairing Anthony Edwards with LaMelo Ball? Or did the Charlotte Hornets make the smarter franchise building move by cashing out for Naz Reid and stacking up draft capital for years to come? Drop it in the comments, because I genuinely want to see which side this fan base lands on. Subscribe for more breakdowns as this story develops, because gang, this trade is going to dominate conversation all the way through opening night, and something tells me this isn't even Minnesota's last move this offseason.